ask each one to introduce themselves and just to talk briefly about what they offer and start it up.
Yeah, I'm Sudhi, founder of Huduku Cloud. It's a product offering from Huduku. We offer cloud-based solutions spanning Joomla and WordPress, predominantly within Joomla, verticalized for specific features. Like one of the features is a simple website called JWeb. With the social media part of it, we have JPeople. We are partnering with Joom Social, pre-configured Joomla stuff, and then the other one is something we have built for the publishing houses, media publishing houses, content-rich media with J Media. Pretty much that's about it.
So my name is Daniel. I work with Rackspace in the cloud division. We have a cloud suite that we're able to offer, which offers everything from a online file storage solution to a virtualized server environment as well. With our primary offering, which is primarily cloud servers, we stand up a virtualized instance that acts like a dedicated server. You have full control over it. Do anything with it that you like. So you can run your Joomla install on it. You can cluster your sites and databases that you do powering Joomla on that system. And the good thing about cloud servers is that the cost on that system can be very, very cheap, depending on what size server that you pick and how many servers that you deploy. So it gives you an intermediate solution between a dedicated server and a shared environment. So it's a solution that's fairly popular now.
My name is Gary Brooks. I'm with cloudaccess.net, and we are the host of the demonstration site for the Joomla organization. We launch about 22,000 of these websites a month, so we have to scale quite a bit with just having to handle the Joomla.org traffic. We manage our services in our own cloud infrastructure, and it's more it's a hybrid solution. It's hosting, but it's also the software built in. So we actually launch the instance for you and maintain the instance for you and make sure that it has all the scalable features inside of it and provide you the system in a box. And all you have to do is program and use it, and that's it. And we also provide phone support for the content management system for 1995, so which is quite a feature that no other hosting company has, is that we actually pick up the phone and talk Joomla.
Okay. Now, can you explain to everyone the real difference between cloud and being on a dedicated server or live server, the differences? A lot of people get confused. It's if you're not a tech person or server admin, it all kind of sounds the same. So give you a little more discrepancy.
There are numerous definitions for the cloud floating around. I think in my view, I think it's more or less a network of computers where you have a piece of virtual machine software like a VMware or a ZenSource installed on these network of hardware. Again, the servers could be Dell or HP Blade servers or whatever it is. End of the day, what differentiates is the piece of software and then the cloud platform itself, like an OpenStack from Rackspace, or EC2 uses the Elastic Cloud Computing Platform, something like that, which differentiates it. The value where the value that comes in with the cloud is the scalability, like how Gary explained. It's also about the storage capabilities and the media processing. A lot of the websites, simple websites that you build, the media is stored on the shared box, and then the SQL server is on the shared box, where millions of people hitting the box. It's actually a simple machine, a single instance of a single Linux server or Windows server, but then it's not really giving you the capabilities of a cloud, or more, it's not powerful enough to scale up. That's where the cloud would come up, where you have the ability to scale your applications to whatever level you want, or scale down when the demand is less. That's what the power of the cloud is. One of the, I think the best part is the affordability of the cloud. Before the invent of the cloud, it was not affordable for normal people. The content delivery network was expensive. So with all this Amazon, S3, CloudFront, and Rackspace Cloud Files, it has become affordable for normal people, where you can monetize your own content. Prior to this, you had to use a media engine like YouTube or Dailymotion, but nowadays you can host your own videos and then host it on a CloudFront and then serve it through the URLs. And that's the beauty of it, wherein you have the tools to monetize your own content, your own media stuff, and eventually make a business out of it.
And Dan, what's your take on that?
It's exactly right, and whether people realize it or not, they actually use cloud systems in pretty much every day of their life. If you're using Google, their Google email, that is a cloud application. Basically, any system where you access it over the internet is going to be a cloud environment. So cloud isn't really new, it's just taking on different forms and coming to the forefront as people and organizations look to lower their costs. You have the federal government that just enacted a cloud-first directive because they're trying to lower their $80 billion IT cost. And also the European Union is also doing the same thing. So, cloud isn't just for enterprises or government. It also plays a role in small businesses and also personal users as well. Just like you mentioned, for instance, with Rackspace Cloud and also Amazon, who are the two largest players in it, you can get an account and use the service, and monthly costs for anywhere from $10 to maybe $20 a month. So instead of using a shared environment, you can use a cloud-based system.
Of course, if you are simply building a 5-page website, cloud is an overkill. You are better off spending $2 a month and hosting it on a machine. I mean, there are people who come to me, I want to do this 5-page website. Your price is so expensive. I said it's not for you. I mean, it's not for people who want to build a 5-page website. Cloud is not for them. I mean, if you want to build a 5-page website, you're good enough with GoDaddies and GoMemes of the world. You can stay there, and that's not for them.
Gary, in case that another one knows what an instance is, what is an instance of a server?
Well, an instance of a server is like, I guess it goes different ways. You could consider it like a node where you would physically mount the hardware up on the system, or where, like in the Amazon or the Rackspace, you launch a virtualized server where it's kind of sitting up there in La La Land, and you get to access it like a real machine, and it sits up in a virtualized world where you have a high availability to the machine. But I don't think of that as cloud personally. I don't think that virtualization is cloud. I think that real cloud applications are I think a cloud is more like going more towards the application layer than so much the architecture of the servers. Although that there's always an underlying structure there that allows you to be, say you're cloud enabled, but Joomla is not really a cloud-enabled application. I don't know if you guys know that or not. It's not a distributed application. The code that's built in Joomla isn't built to be distributed. It doesn't like Rackspace here. He talks about clustering, but you can't just cluster Joomla. It's not like some kind of thing where you drag and drop and cluster Joomla. It doesn't work that way. You have to actually do a lot of mechanics, and you have to be an engineer to actually be able to cluster a Joomla environment, especially if you're doing a shared hosting environment. If it's a single instance, it's a little bit easier. But there's a lot more definition involved in what the definition of cloud is and where it's evolving, and we haven't really arrived there. I just being honest. Joomla's got a long ways to go.
Now, when you say a distributed application, maybe people, I don't know if everyone knows what distributed means. And so maybe Dan, can you give me a definition of what a distributed application, what clustering is?
Well, clustering is, in essence, you can have, instead of everything operating off of one server or one device, you can have multiple devices to be able to all run those systems. So for instance, in this case, and he's exactly right, you know, a lot of, I've had situations where I've had customers come to me and they put their onto our system and expect it to work out of the box. That isn't always necessarily so. You might have to make some modifications, and the amount of modifications that you have to make will vary. But in essence, because there are systems in place where you have one server that'll take a request, but in a multi-server environment, you have multiple servers making requests, you have to make sure that everything isn't going to write to, for instance, example, write to the same file at the same time. Otherwise, you can have corrupted file systems.
Yeah, to that front, I think we're, as you guys, majority of the people know that we're trying to work with Microsoft to support Windows Azure on Joomla. That is part of the engagement. I think a couple of places where Windows Azure closely mimics other cloud providers is where they offer blob storage for the media stuff. That's where when we support it, I think we should be able to take Joomla and put it on any cloud provider. Like let's say you know, you're trying to install Joomla on Windows Azure, you will have the ability to select which provider you want to go with, like a Windows Azure blob storage, or if you want to go with an Amazon S3 CloudFront, you should be able to select Amazon S3, and then it would directly store all your media stuff on S3. Or if Gary needs something else with his own platform, I think you should be able to select that and, you know, make Joomla compatible with that.
Peter had a question.
Well, it wasn't a question, more about a statement. I want to add to that discussion on the question of what's determined that an app is distributable or if it's scalable. And the other answer given that it's, you know, the notion of having it on more than one device at a time, more than one physical server. I'm a little here for the camera.
We'll see that.
All right, sure. So yeah, you're talking about having multiple machines running an instance of an app. In this case, let's say Joomla. The biggest concern that immediately comes to mind is the storage. You mentioned, you know, if you have a single file, you know, then how are all three of those machines saving their data to the file? Because you'll have data out of sync. And a conceptual change is you have to have the data be external from the machine that's running, that's serving up the web pages. You know, it has to be stored separately. So whether it's like a blob storage or a database running on a different server that's shared by all the different clustered servers, that's the key change that from a design perspective and a coding perspective, if you're engineering the app, you need to do to make your app be distributed. And there's many, many different ways to do that, but that's the key concept at a high level.
Do we have any questions? Do you want to know more about the Joomla Cloud? Okay, I have a question. When do you know that your site is ready for the cloud?
Well, as I said, not all sites are ready for the cloud. Something like, you know, you need massive media. You want a massive media storage. That's when I think you know, if you're building a site with massive media stuff, then I think that's where you might want to go towards the cloud, where, you know, you could leverage us or any one of us and go and enable your media storage on the cloud, where you'll have the ability to store your media stuff on the cloud, and all the medias are getting served from the cloud. The other point is if you're, you know, the number of visitors, you know, you are hitting the mark of, like, on a dedicated box, you're hitting like 10,000 unique users or 20,000 unique users, whatever is the limit. If you're starting to hit that number, I think that's when you start considering cloud.
I disagree 100%. 100%. The cloud is usually, when you're talking about sticking stuff out on the, out on like the Amazon S3 or something like that would be the cloud front. So that would be a whole other scenario. That would be actually you putting it out on the edge, not so much that Joomla runs localhost. It's made to run localhost. It's made to run off one machine really fast. And it's like if you think that if you take a really big fast node like a Nehalem processor with 144 gigabytes of RAM and 24 15K SAS disk and think it's going to run, that you're going to put that same machine over in the Rackspace cloud or this guy's cloud, and that it's going to run faster, it's going to scale better. It's not, 100%.
Well,
A single node will scale a lot better, and then you can connect a CDN out to the edge, and then you can scale because you're distributing the edge of the media files only,
right,
but not the actual application.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that you should just move to the cloud or whatever. I mean, there are certain things that you need to worry about, like for instance, you just can't take from a dedicated server and move to the cloud. You just need to do some kind of a number in terms of how do you handle the failovers, or how do you handle your the load balancing stuff and things like that, where when a failover happens, you could redirect it to another server. So I still don't understand how on a single node you could handle those kind of load balancing issues. We had problems handling those on dedicated server, even when you had a load balancer balancing between two servers. So that's where we are suggesting to have a load balancer with two web heads and with a master slave MySQL replication setup for those kind of situations. So I mean, those are we always have to think about what the end user needs and what kind of application or sites that would be fit in, based on the need. You can't generalize, okay, let's say Joomla is functioning like this and let's make it function on a single node or whatever.
Yeah,
It really depends on the need.
Generally, anytime you have to, Joomla's it's crazy at stat calls. When it stats the disk, like when you access the index of your page, if you're not running like an ATC cache and you're doing raw to a Joomla site and you pull the site down, it'll pull up the disk 100 times. And when you're talking about one single disk, just one disk on a machine, I mean, one single disk can only do so many IOPS. It's how many times that disk can find a file as fast as it can and find it and then shove it out to the edge, right? And shove it out to your customer. I mean, there's so many variables there for you to say that it would go to the cloud, it'd be faster, clustering would be faster. I would disagree, again, 100%.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, not being familiar with the innards of Joomla, I would say you've got a point in the sense that I think the answer is it depends on the app, how the app is designed. In the case of Joomla, if it's as you describe, it's very disk intensive, to serve a page. That would obviously be something that you'd probably want to optimize the design of the application not to do that in order to achieve more scale. I don't think it necessarily means that you can't achieve more scale by scaling out on multiple boxes versus scaling up on a big box, but it's definitely some work, and it depends on the app does, and that might be, that's why it's not, as you said earlier, it's not cloud enabled today.
No, it's
Yeah.
not.
And the way that Rackspace takes a look at it is that in some situations, cloud is just not a fit for a customer. And in those cases, that's why we will also tell a customer to move over to our dedicated environment instead. In some situations, customers can also utilize a hybrid solution where they can use both dedicated machines and also cloud as well. So they get the mix of both worlds, just depending on what their specific use case is going to be.
Now, this question, how many people in this room have ever even thought of how many times their disk got hit on their server? See, now that's a piece of information that most of us don't even thought of, including myself. And I launched my first site that's probably going to have a lot of traffic. Now, it's me more food for thought on how to better repair that, make sure that that server's running functionally. More importantly, how to build them more money. Next question is, in the cloud, one of the other ventures of the cloud is to have elastic scalability where you can self-inflate and self-deflate. In other words, if you have a site, let's say Joomla Day NYC, which for most of the year will probably be quiet, but in the leading month up to the event, may get a lot more traffic. And let's look a couple years in the future when you have 10,000 people showing up, and it's a huge major, no, it's a holiday in New York. How does your system offer the scalability and lastability for self-deflating and so it can go up and down, so you can change as your traffic moves? Start with Peter.
Well, right now Joomla is not running in Azure yet until we have 1.6 ready. It's
Okay.
beta, so we try it. But in theory, the way it works is, and again, it depends on the app, so I don't know in case of Joomla. You need to know at what point, when you say you need to scale up, you need to know at what point that is. You need to measure and have some quantifiable data. How many users before my box is starting to bog down and slow down? I don't know that answer. You won't know that answer until you actually run tests and see. And that answer will be different depending on the app based on what that app does. Once you know that number, then you can obviously put in mechanisms that monitor, and when you get close to that number or think you're going to go above it because you can predict whether the cycle of the business or you get close to the conference, to say, okay, let's enable another instance and turn on another server that can split the load out. So now you can, in theory, grow as big as the second instance. And that can be done obviously through monitoring, which is specific to what your app is doing or your site. And then it's literally like flipping a light switch, some blue code to go up and then to come back down again.
All right. Jeremy?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
The question is, does your system allow for self-inflating and self-deflating elasticity?
Okay, so the nodes we stick people on our company on are they're really big. They're like they're a Dell R710, and they have what's called a SAS interconnect. It's a fiber connection between kind of like a NAS or a SAN. It's not a SAN. It's more of a NAS. They call them JBODs, and it's got 24 disks in it. So it's got like crazy amounts of I/O, and that's one single unit. It's a $30,000 node if you were going to purchase it. So if you could imagine, if you could buy yourself a $30,000 node and be able to utilize that whole thing, that's what you can do at cloudaccess.net. Is you can actually scale all the way from the bottom end of this thing all the way to the top and run it in its ideal world. And I don't know. I mean, I would put it up against any. We run a service called Load Impact. Whenever we have a site, we run a service called. And we actually hit the site and test how many concurrent connections we can do. And with one of our biggest nodes, we can run over 10,000 concurrent connections to a system, which is I would have a hard time to saying that most nodes that you guys set up, like when you set them up and they're like $150 with one disk in them, a Joomla site raw to the disk can probably handle about. You'd be lucky if you hit 40 concurrent connections.
Dan?
With Rackspace for Cloud Servers offering, we have an API that either you can build your own system that can automatically scale, or you can use a third-party product that ties to our API, so it's already built for you. So at that point, like you mentioned, it's just left to monitoring. You can set up a system to where it monitors your site traffic. If you start to take, for instance, just as an example, if your site load times start to increase, that may be a result of your server getting bogged down. So you may need to deploy more servers. So you can set up that system to automatically deploy additional servers or resize existing servers on your account to include additional capacity on it.
Sidhu?
Yeah, pretty much. I think we'll have to monitor at what stage it's breaking down, and then accordingly make a decision. You can't directly say, okay, this is the time to move to a cloud. I would rely on the data, raw data, what is the time it's taking for SQL operations, and because majority of that is like a call to the database. Whatever read write is saying, it's all about the data which is getting out of MySQL and writing it into a MySQL. So I would focus on the database backend stuff a little bit more and see where the bottlenecks are. And then we have built for Joomla natively does support connecting to a master and slave databases within natively with 1.5 with our offering. So we use MySQL master slave replication to avoid a little bit on that front. But other than that, I would need real raw data to say which architecture will be better.
Any questions? No questions. All right. Well, I have no more questions myself. There's an interesting topic on the cloud computing, the changes we're having in environments. And of course, a small site that doesn't get much traffic, you're better off with your hosting company you're doing. But you should have an idea of what goes on, because if you do have a site that starts growing, one of the biggest things to kill a business is have the site go down when you hit that peak time. So sometimes you should consider, even if it's a small site, if you think it may have growth or legs, host in the cloud so we can take advantage of elasticity. I mean, we also the commercial where, you see the company, one hit, two hit, the bell starts ringing off the thing, and the server's fried, and the next day, they're moving the furniture out. So, well, thank you very much for our panel. It's also time to our sponsors, Microsoft, Cloud Access, Rackspace, and Hadoop. I get it right this time? See, I kind of learn new tricks. Thank you, and our lunch will be available in a few minutes, about 11 minutes exactly. And then the afternoon sessions will be kind of a little free formatting, so think of ideas that you may want to do for the afternoon sessions. Thank you.
Thank you.